Okay, we're recording. Here we go.
Start over.
We are professional.
No. Leave that. That was great.
I feel like we've been here for hours.
Sorry. That's not what we...
I don't even know.
So we're going to go right now, brother. Right now.
All right, you ready?
Play the porno music.
It's not porno music. It is 70s mood music.
Yeah, to get you in the mood to do some things. Turn down the lights.
A little bit of Barry White going on.
Turn down the lights. Turn down the lights. Is that
What?
how you helped yourself get over divorce?
Turning down the lights?
Yeah, and turn on some Barry White. Slap on some lotion.
No. That's so...
Can you name that movie that was actually on?
No, I don't know what movie that is.
It was Dead Man on Campus.
I never saw that movie.
Oh my god, it's so good. I love that movie. He's like,
that sounds horrible.
He's like, I'm trying to do my homework. Well, I can't play my bong while you're doing your homework.
You know what we would do in Iraq when we were, because we had a 10-man tent that 4 of us were in, and we had like wall lockers and like sheets hanging and all that kind of stuff to kind of the privacy.
Share lotion.
Well, no, what we would do is we're not Navy, we're Army. No, but if like there's a friend of mine, LaBeouf, that was, you know, he was right next to me. So like 2 of us were on shift, 2 of us weren't on shift, kind of thing. I'd be like, "Hey, LaBeouf," and he goes, "Not now." And I just wait.
LaBeouf.
And then, like, however long later it would be like, "Yeah, man, what do you need?"
He'd be behind his curtain. You're behind
He'd be behind his curtain.
He's
yeah,
like, hold on.
But it was So that's what we do. Is like, not right now.
All right now.
And then we just gave each other the privacy. It was a year in Iraq, and I mean, there was a lot of people that were like, they were having sex with other people. There was a lot of that going on. Not me. I didn't do that.
Like dudes or like.
Well, I'm sure
girls,
that happened too, but
guys,
no, like there were
Iraqis.
like people that were married.
Iraqis.
That happened a lot, but like there were married couple or people that were married that during deployment they would sleep with other women.
Oh,
so it was crazy.
Yeah,
And there was a bunch of them that were like
Brandon telling me about on his ship. There's like 64 people, 65. I don't know. He'll correct me later, probably. But they're like 2 girls, and I guess they actually made it a thing. Like,
yeah,
a lot of people would spend their money, and basically they're like hookers on the ship.
Well, yeah, I don't know if anybody did that in Iraq, because I was a good little boy. I never ever did anything with anybody else.
Just the lotion.
Never did anything with anybody.
Put the lotion on and put it in the bucket.
But yeah,
so today's topic is wonderful, and it's how to find yourself. Right?
How to find yourself?
Kind of like that. I don't know. I was going
peace.
I was going with
peace. How to find yourself.
I was going
We're
with
not hippies doing a peyote kind of thing.
Well, I wasn't done with the whole title. I was like doing a little reach around kind of thing. Basically.
I'm sure that happened in Iraq too.
How to find.
Again, I never did anything with anybody.
Just the monkeys. I
have never cheated on a spouse.
That's good.
Ever. I've been cheated on. Never done the cheating.
That's good. Good job.
Thanks.
High five.
All right. Cool. All right. So
hypothetical high five.
All right.
Now Jason might think that's actually a key for us to edit that out. Don't edit that out, Jason.
No, we're not going to. Okay. So it's finding peace after divorce, right?
Yeah, finding peace after divorce, how to cope with the hurt and pain, how to find yourself again, how to go through all that stuff.
Ways to move forward.
Acknowledge the process of emotion, prioritize. I have a hard time. That word every time. Last week,
prioritize
your self-care. And then, build a strong support system and then focus on the future.
Yeah, those are kind of the topics that we're going to cover, but, I mean, it's like, they're like building a strong support system. Some guys don't have it. I was very lucky. My parents are wonderful, and they were behind me 100%. They were there in the courtroom for like a lot of the divorce, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
which was hard because they heard some of the stuff that I was a little not embarrassed necessarily, but it's like, yeah, your parents don't need to know your sex life with your wife.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, they heard some of that stuff. No, but like with my parents being there in the courtroom, like one of the things, because there's like these common themes that sometimes will be used against husbands, of them being like emotionally abusive and verbally abusive and all this other stuff, right? So one of the things that my ex's attorney tried to do was he tried to make me into this like sexually abusive monster. And he was like, "You like it really hard, don't you?" All this stuff. And I'm like, well, when your wife is asking you to go harder, you go harder. But my parents were in the courtroom. But that was how I responded to that. It's like, okay, if your partner's saying, give it to me, go harder, 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 you're going to go harder. You're not going to say, no, I need it to be soft. No, yeah. You're going to, anyway.
Yeah.
That might be TMI.
Pretty bird. Take that out. Pretty bird.
All right, so.
We lost focus there.
We did, yeah, we do that a lot.
No, so okay, so you got divorced. You went through fucking hell, a year and a half of hell and everything. So after you got the kids, well, actually, let's go back. Let's take a step back. As a therapist, there are coping mechanisms that you help your clients with, and the big one is finding yourself, taking time away to stop. Don't date right away. Take a step back and find yourself.
Well, probably one of the things that I help them recognize for both them and their kids is that they are going through a grieving process. This is a marriage, and depending on how long you've been married, that is the end of everybody's life as they knew it. For the kids, it's the end of their life as they knew it.
Yeah,
everything changes.
And we talked about that in the last episode,
right? And so, but for us too, I don't know about you. I know about you.
I was going to say, yeah, you do. What the fuck?
But like, it was a complete shift in. I mean, my first wife and I had been married for like 14 and a half, 15 years when she asked for a divorce. The divorce took like another year and a half, almost 2 years. It took a few months before we actually started going to court, but the court process was a year and a half. So it's like almost 16 years, 15 and a half, 16 years of marriage that all of a sudden it's like, I'm in a house by myself, all this other stuff, And so it is a grieving process. You get angry, you're in denial, all those steps of grieving. That's what people go through. The kids go through it too.
Well, and that's why I think in the past they've or some therapists will actually say keep a journal and write your emotions.
Yeah, I didn't keep a journal.
Yeah, neither did I. I mean, in a way, I kind of did. I think it was kind of good for me because I still had a whole year of nursing school.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you had to focus.
So my focus was like that and still trying to be there for the kids and do the sports. And it was kind of hard. Like, I think being in an apartment and, going from reading to your kids every night and bath and doing fun things, helping them with the homework, cooking dinners to coming home to nothing.
Yeah, it sucks.
It was just like...
That was hard.
Man, what do I do with myself?
That was so hard.
And it was kind of nice to like relaxing because I couldn't afford a home. We were going to sell a house and split it and buy 2 homes so there wouldn't be such a disparity, but then that didn't happen for different reasons.
Yeah, you kind of got screwed over.
So I was really hurt and pissed by that at first, but then after not having to I went and bought a new mantle for the apartment. I painted the whole apartment different colors, bought furniture to
you had permission to do that?
I just fucking did it.
I was going to say most landlords don't let you do that stuff.
Well, when the maintenance guys would come in, like, holy crap, this apartment's really nice. I was like, yeah. But the whole thing was trying to make it mine and make it my kids, because that was the whole goal, was to create an environment that they helped build, and they did. And that really helped me a lot with coping. And then I joined a kickball league.
Really? That's awesome.
And I joined the kickball league. First, I actually went to St. Patty's Day. St. Patty's Day is a big the holiday for me. Like, I love it.
Got wasted.
And I was really close to my friend Dave, and we both wear kilts. So we actually walked to Llewellyn's in our kilts, and people are honking and all this stuff. It's like basically 2 blocks, 3 blocks.
Yeah.
And then we met a bunch of people that have become lifelong friends. We met, Susan and Kate and a couple other people at that, and it was just cool because it's like I met all these newly divorced people and new single people, and they weren't bitter. I mean, they had kind of frustrations from their divorce, but they weren't like, "Oh my God, my life sucks," kind of attitude. And so it was kind of nice having that kind of support system that I didn't have because, I didn't really have a lot, and so I leaned into school, leaned into that, and then we joined a kickball league, and that was cool because it's like every weekend getting active, and then I started walking more, started cycling more, on a bike.
Well, and that's the thing is like to help process the divorce. If you just sit in your house and you're just by yourself, all that kind of stuff, you're going to get really depressed.
Yeah, and angry.
Bitter. You're going to drink more if you're a drinker. I don't drink, but like if you're a drinker, you're going to drink. You're going to be obsessed with it, and it's going to just eat you alive.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did was I actually bought a motorcycle, something that my first wife did not want me to have.
I got a tattoo.
There we go, yeah. But I got a motorcycle. It was not running. I only paid like $400 for it, but I rebuilt it over the course of a couple of years. And so me working with my hands was therapy. I had, during the divorce, I had bought another house. This is back in Georgia, so housing wasn't very expensive. And so I bought another house, and it needed to be updated and changed around. So I was able to do, I scraped all the popcorn off the ceilings on the main floor.
Yeah.
And, redid a couple things, repainted rooms, all kinds of stuff. And so working with my hands became therapy for me.
Yeah.
At the time, I was in therapy, but that was for my PTSD from the Army. But that became therapy. And the nice thing about the motorcycle was, it was sitting there waiting for me. I didn't have to go. I didn't feel the pressure to go and work on it all the time. I mean, it took me 4 years to build it. I got this 83 Honda CB1000 Custom.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then I turned it into this murdered out, bastardized cafe racer / bobber kind of feel, but it was really aggressive. Anyway, it was really nice when I was done with it. But that became therapy for me. So when people talk about journaling, I am not a journaler.
Yeah, I've always been like you. I like to build. Mowing for me was very therapeutic in general. And then when I'd fix stuff, so generally if I'm really, really stressed, I like to fix things.
Yeah.
And I think, and the frustrating thing is oh crap, I fucked it up. I have to spend more money. But so for me, that emotional process or dealing with a lot of that was finding the things that I like to do to where I would think positively about the future and positively about the divorce, and it was hard. I think the thing that I struggled mostly was the loss of time with my kids, and will I have that going forward, and will they want me to be their dad and stuff. And once you realize they do, and I control that kind of thing, but there's some dads and moms that don't get to control that time. I mean, you literally missed 1.5 years of your kid's life because of
effectively, yeah.
Because that sucks, and that processing for you is God, I'm going to get through this. And I can't tell you how you felt, but you can
try, but
I know if that was me, that probably would have broke me.
It came really close. It came really close. That was actually the second divorce. One of the reasons for the second divorce was because I felt myself going back to that place.
Yeah.
And I told my second wife, I was like, I would rather be single than feel like that again.
Yeah.
And so if basically if things are not changing for the better, I'm done.
Yeah, and that's honestly, the relationship after Amanda was harder for me. And you know that it was.
Oh yeah.
Because
she kind of screwed you over.
Well, no, I mean, I think for me,
mentally,
yeah. I mean, she gaslit me all the time and all this stuff. But for me, it was the first relationship that I kind of really went 100% in, and it was hard because I was really projecting a lot of my fears of what would happen. My first stepmom was just horrible. I'm sorry if you hear this, Nedra, because you were. And I think she really made my dad miserable to the point that he wouldn't want us there, or not want us there, but
yeah,
she would make him feel like shit if he spent time with us, because like, oh, you're neglecting your real family kind of thing. And so it was just hard.
Yeah.
So I'd never wanted my kids to feel that or go through that. And there were times that I would feel like it was pushing that way. And, you know, there's things that she would do, like purposely scheduling herself on the days she knew I had my kids, and then go, well, if you really loved me, you'd work those same days. And,
right.
And I'm like, well, you know, I have my kids, so of course I'm not going to fucking work those days. So I'm sorry. You chose to work the days that you know I have my kids. And
that is so manipulative.
And so it was
holy cow.
And down the road, she eventually, like, as we were separating, she admitted, she's like, yeah, I wanted you all for myself. Fuck your kids. I didn't care about your kids. I didn't want them around. And I'm like, I'm so glad this is...
What a horrible person.
And that actually helped me, like, get over it.
If she hears this, you are a horrible person for doing that.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things is like, well, I'm glad I wish I saw it sooner. And there were some things my kids expressed to me that I wish I knew sooner. Mm-hmm. But what sucked is they wanted me to be happy, and they were like, well, we wanted you to be happy, and it's just we didn't want you to taint your view of her. And we were worried. I'm like, no, man, if someone's treating you like shit, my kid's treating you like shit, I don't want to be that person.
You know what one of my kids told me after I divorced my second wife?
No, I don't.
So my second youngest, she goes, I feel like I see you again.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? I did not realize. I didn't realize it. But, I mean, that kind of statement from my kids is like, that's kind of confirmation that I made the right decision.
Well, and I'm
sorry for hurting my second wife, because, you know, she's a wonderful person, all that kind of stuff. It's not like there was major problems or anything like that. It just didn't work. But, like, I didn't realize that I lost part of myself again. And that's what happened in my first marriage. I lost who I was. And so, you know, going through... Here's a plug. Ready? If you're struggling with the divorce, if you're struggling with the process, you're struggling with the way that you feel about you and life and all that kind of stuff, seek professional help.
Yeah,
a good therapist that you connect with. But
and I really wish I did that also after Amanda, which I kind of did with, you know, talking to you and stuff. But
I was informally your therapist.
Yeah. It was interesting because, you know, with Brenna, I did healthy things. You know, I went for walks, and I worked out, and I worked on me, and I wrote down lists of what I will put up with and what I won't put up with, and you know, boundaries and stuff like that, and stuff. You know, basically just got to the point that by the time I met Amanda, I was like, oh, maybe I'm being too picky. Maybe I'm doing this. Maybe I'm, because, you know, 4 years later.
Right. And then you've slipped into this horrible cycle.
Yeah.
Because you second guessed your boundaries.
Well, the sad thing is there are so many red flags that my biggest flaw is I make excuses for people.
Yeah, I know you do.
And so
I don't know how many times we talked, and I was like, "Dude, that's a red flag. It's a total red flag."
and it's sad because I see people that aren't ready to date, that haven't discovered themselves, haven't really taken time, and they ignore those red flags, and they fall for the same kind of person. And what's crazy is, with her, I didn't do anything healthy. I started drinking a lot. I started going out tons. I mean, I think there was like a good 3 weeks when I don't remember anything because.
That's not good.
Because I met two very unhealthy people that were very drunk and all this stuff all the time. It's just, I can't even describe how unhealthy it was. And I think the eye-opener for me is like, it was like 9 a.m. and these three people were like chugging down vodka and stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck? I go, yeah, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
I got to get back to my life. And I really took a step back and started working on me again, and
good for you,
focusing on work and all that stuff like that. And it was interesting because I met the next person 6 months later, and that was kind of where that person was so fake and kind, and always had to be like, oh, let me help you, let me help you, let me help you. But not just with me, with everybody, my friends and all that stuff. And they just would always have like the right answer. And, oh my gosh, I could do that for you really quick. Let me fix that really quick. And so everybody's like, oh, this is a really nice person. But behind the doors, it was the same shit that I was getting from the last two relationships, just in different forms.
Yeah.
But more manipulative and controlling. And it was funny because I was like, shit. This is literally, I'm falling into this fucking I'm miserable. Okay, I think I can do this. Whatever, what it is. And it was actually not Robert Downey Jr., the Pirates of the Caribbean guy.
Oh, shoot.
You lost it too. Everybody at home's like, it's so and so.
All right. Let's see.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. That's who it is. I was about to look it up.
So basically, I was scrolling through Instagram one day, and Johnny Depp just goes, if you're miserable with the person that you're with, and you're thinking about being somewhere else, then you might as well be that somewhere else. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And so after that one, I just really focused on getting healthy again, working mentally, being straight.
Yeah, one of the things I did, because part of it is like prioritizing your self-care, right? Trying to do those things that get you back in where you're healthy. So after my first divorce, I'd gained some weight. I was like 280, 290.
Yeah.
Because, I had injuries and surgeries and stuff in the Army and medically retired out and stopped working out, but I was still eating like I was working out all the time. And so...
It's all the Oreo was black.
Yeah. Well, and so like I got on this diet where it was like, I'm going to show her what she's missing, And I lost a bunch of weight. She didn't care.
Right, but when did it flip over to where you cared about you and it wasn't about her?
It wasn't like that at first. At first,
but when did it switch? Was it after she says you realized she didn't give a shit either way?
When I realized that she didn't care, I stopped. Oh. I mean, I got down quite a bit of weight, and got pretty fit again. But like I started working out, and of course I pushed too hard, got injured again, had another surgery. I've had so many surgeries, but then this is the diet that I am on now that I did then.
Yeah.
And I did it a second time because I wanted to see, okay, if I lose the weight, will it help with the pain? It didn't.
But it will over time.
That losing the weight by itself actually does not help my pain. My pain is not based on my weight. It helps as far as like there's not as much strain on the body.
Yeah.
But I'm still in pain.
But you're at 250?
I'm about 245 now.
So we're literally the same weight right now.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
I'm also taller than you, though.
No, but honestly, when you get to like 220, that's when you're going to start.
That's my goal.
That's when you're going to start feeling the less strain on the knees and the back and the hips.
Well, like in high school, I was 200 pounds, and I was like 7% body fat. And at my peak in the military, when I was my healthiest, I was running miles and lifting a bunch and all that kind of stuff. I was like 230, 235.
Tai Chi.
Nope. But, this time it's like I want to be healthy. I've got grandkids now, and I want to be healthy. I want to live as long as I can, all that kind of stuff. But that, I'm prioritizing me again. I did that at first after the first divorce, but I did it in different ways than I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
So like one of the things that I am prioritizing now is I've got goals that I'm trying to reach, and I am not willing to put them aside.
So that's your future goals, though, right?
That I'm working on now.
Yeah. So you're prioritizing your mental health.
Yep.
Your physical strength.
My physical health. Yep.
Okay. You're eating better.
I am eating better.
And this is your hobby.
This is one of the things I'm doing. But like I'm renovating my house. I'm working on getting out of debt. I'm working on a lot of different things because, I thought before, like with my first wife, we talked about getting out of debt. We talked about here's something. You ready? So I wanted to start a franchise. I wanted to own the businesses. And
was it a lotion company?
It was not a lotion company. Like I said, I was not in the
Lotions
Navy.
And curtains.
I was not in the Navy. Anyway. So she said, she said, because like at the time, I think to start a Subway, you only had to have a $7,000 franchise fee, and they would help you get all the financing, find a location, all that kind of stuff. It was one of the easiest to get into. And she said, well, not until we have guaranteed income, insurance for the family, this kind of stuff. So I didn't do it. Well, when I got out of the military, I got medically retired. I had insurance for the family, and I had a guaranteed income that paid our bills. And I said, I can start a franchise now. And she goes, no, you can't. We're not going to do that. And I was like, but you said that I had to make sure this, and this was taken care of. And all of those are now taken care of. What do you mean I can't do it? And she just said no. And so it's like, okay, she did not support us getting out of debt. She spent money. Like, I remember we were paying off a credit card, and I came home from work one day, and there were bags of clothes in the living room.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, that is not supportive of the goals that we talked about trying to reach, right? Same thing in the second marriage, where it was like, money is a stressor for me, want to get out of debt. I try and manage my finances really, really well, and then it'd be, a bunch of expenses. But like I talked in a previous episode about like $2,300 worth of groceries once.
So how do you acknowledge that and process that?
So what I do now is I'm not going to not reach my goals. If I'm going to find a partner, if there's somebody that's going to be a part of my life, I want somebody who is not holding me back from those, but encouraging them. I want to encourage their goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's no longer about like, giving it lip service and then not doing anything, right?
Yeah, that was hard for me in my first, because I felt like, your job's not as good as mine. I make more money, so you raise the kids. Mm-hmm. And then when Quinn turned 5, it was like, well, what are you going to do with all your free time? I'm like, go play golf, drink, whatever. I don't care why. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah.
And I'm not. That's unacceptable. I don't accept that. That's not fair. I go, what do you mean it's not fair? Well, you only work 3 days. Like, I work 40 hours in 3 days.
Yeah.
I go, I picked a career that I can work extra, but it takes away a lot of time for my kids when I do.
Right.
And I can't because you're gone. I go, but honestly, we talked about this 5 years ago that I would like to go to med school. And, I don't have patience for that. No.
Yeah, right?
And I was just like, wow, okay. But that's how our relationship was. It was supportive only one way a lot of the times.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but we're totally off topic, But
well, it's one of those things where it's like, that's how we lose who we are in a marriage. We try and support the other person. We're hoping that they will support us back, and it just gets less and less and less. And so we lose ourselves in that process. And by the time we get divorced, because they don't like the person we've become, because we've been trying to become the person they've told us to become, and it's not the person they fell in love with. And so when we find ourselves divorced, it's like, wait a second, I gave up everything for this marriage and for the family and for you. I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah, and the sad thing is nobody has to give up anything.
No.
They really don't. And it's just like even when you have kids, you're not. The mistake people make, men and women, is you're giving up something to have kids. I'm like, no, your kids are an add-on, a blessing.
Yeah.
Now, if you put them priority number one all the time, you're giving up a lot.
Yeah.
Because you're not taking care of yourself. You're not doing what you need to do. You're not
building a relationship with your spouse.
Yeah. Jinx.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, you have a failed marriage, you have a failed relationship, you're struggling with it, you finally file for divorce, and that's where people get lost, is they don't know who they are, they don't know what to do, and that's where, finding peace after the divorce and relationship is so important, because you need to find yourself again. And women are actually really good at doing this. I think they're really good at doing it.
Well, I have kind of a perspective based on some of the clients that I have.
But here's the kicker.
Okay.
Is they do it too long. Because I think a lot of them get so self-sufficient, and they're like, oh, this is kind of nice. I don't want anybody. And if somebody doesn't come along that fits in their perfect package, where they don't have to sacrifice anything, then they're not good enough.
Well, and it's almost like, and men do it too, but it's like this mindset of, well, I'm going to do things my way, and this is how it's going to be, and I'm not willing to compromise anymore. And so, like, I don't know how many videos I've seen of women talking about going on a date and the guy did one thing that they didn't like, and it's like, nope, not worth it. All the stuff. Yeah. You have no idea who the guy is. It was one date. You have no idea, and so there's having high standards, which I absolutely support, because you need to make sure that you have, like, if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, if you're going to get married again, all that kind of stuff, you want to make sure they're the right person for you.
Yeah.
But there can be so high of standards that it's almost delusional. Like I'm sure you've seen a bunch of those videos where women are like,
guys.
He needs to be, yeah. Guys are looking for the perfect woman too, but it's like, he needs to make $500,000 a year or more. He needs to be 6'4". He needs to have a 6-pack, and he needs to be strong and masculine, but soft with kids and all that. And the videos I've seen are, these are the women that have like 3 or 4 kids through 5 or 6 different guys. And it's like, the expectations are unrealistic. There's someone who are like, oh, I would never date a blue collar man. They make actually really good money.
Yeah.
They work hard.
Plumbers.
And they love their families. They sacrifice for their families.
Yeah. Well, and you're seeing that shift on the guys and girls, that if you don't fit my little puzzle piece, then fuck you, I'll just be single the rest of my life. Yeah. And it's sad because you got the sex bots and the virtual reality porn that's basically honestly making these young kids go, cool, now I really don't need a woman.
Right.
And you're like, whoa, it's not just about that, man. Well, it's about a relationship and bonding and building. Yeah. And
but that's
finding
the thing,
a future with someone that
you
built
porn
together.
Out there, it creates a fantasy that is not realistic, but that's what they're watching, and that's what kids are watching, and so they think that's what it's supposed to be. And unfortunately, men and women do that too. I mean, women are we've talked about it before with like the statistics and stuff like that. I view porn as like anything that causes a sexual reaction. So even like the fan fiction or the fantasy novels or the romance novels, all that kind of stuff. How many women read 50 Shades of Grey? That's porn.
Well, you had a lot of therapists saying, oh, your love life's bad? Read this book. It will help you get more stimulated. And it's like, whoa, that's
a cheap copy.
How about the therapist that says, you're having trouble. Hey, you know what? Sit down and look at your vacations with your husband. And it sparks those memories and those those emotions that you had, the bonding moments that you had, and kind of thing. But
I've heard of, like, in couples counseling, and I think this is a great idea too, where it's like 60 days of sex every day.
Yeah, some girl posted that, how she like literally couldn't stand her husband anymore and was like so ready to leave, and her therapist said that. I don't care what it is, how you do it, you just fucking do it.
Yep.
And
pun intended.
And she said by day 10 she wanted it.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah, because we when we're not connecting, we start getting used to not connecting.
Yeah.
But that's like that's one of the ways to help improve a marriage. But when that fails, then
the reason I brought up the porn issue is because there are a lot of guys that will start using porn and they think it's helping them cope.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. It actually stunts them. There's actually a lot of evidence that's come out that it, the dopamine release, but it also decreases your desire to have an actual connection with somebody.
Yep.
And or you start visualizing women or men,
objectifying them
as a toy or a quick fix to emotion. I knew one guy that basically...
we have a big hookup culture right now too.
Yeah. I knew one guy that basically, if he got sad at all, he'd basically just go in the bathroom, jack off. And it's like, because you needed that dopamine.
That creates an addiction. A process addiction. But
that is not a healthy way to cope.
No. Well, and so that, that also talks about like motivations for getting in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there where after they're divorced, they start dating right away. They, sometimes they already have somebody on the side, and that is not healthy. If you're trying to heal from a divorce, if you're trying to heal from a breakup, jumping into bed with somebody that's not going to do it for you, because you're distracting yourself from what you need to do. And like one of the common things that happens is people who they jump into the next relationship end up divorced again. And then they jump into another relationship and they end up divorced again. And it's always, well, I just need to find the right person. Well, if that's what's happening, you got to fix you.
Yeah.
You know? And so one of the things that I heard when I was going through like the parenting class in Georgia during that divorce was minimum 6 months to a year before you actually start seriously seeing anybody.
Well, I was told that it's a month for every year.
That's not a bad gauge either.
Yeah. And honestly, I did that my first. It's kind of funny because like there's a lot of reasons that broke it up, but like I think one was the assumption of something. And it's like I didn't date. I don't think I dated anybody until I graduated nursing school. Like I would go out.
Yeah.
And like I was on the dating apps and I'd actually just say, hey, I really don't want to date. I don't want hookups. I just want to go do something with someone. I go, would you like to go putt-putt or something?
Yeah.
And most girls would be like, hell
Did
yeah.
you say putt-butt?
No, putt-putt.
You said butt-butt?
Movie, dinner, drinks. But
you mean miniature golf?
But, yeah, miniature golf. So, I went on a lot of dates that were just kind of like friend dates.
Yeah.
And
I think that's great.
And it was actually kind of fun. And I actually met a couple of people that we started hanging out, and we got together and we'd play Crazy Eights and Solitaire. And it was just kind of fun. We'd just sit down for like an hour and hang out, and then I'd leave and go home. And those are all the good things. Or we go watch a band, and I'd go, hey, if you have friends that want to come too, like it doesn't have to be like a solo thing. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, totally cool, yeah. But yeah, and the other thing is I Ubered. Like I actually drove Uber to kind of help like get to know people and get to like see things. And that was actually a lot of fun because it's like I got out. I wasn't sitting at home. So if I didn't have my kids, I would Uber. And I would make money and actually get to know people, and I got to see a lot of cool different places in Kansas City to go hang out. And so it was kind of a cool coping thing.
It is really cool. You know, finding things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? Like I liked working with my hands, but I hung out with friends when I was in Georgia, and here after the second divorce, I mean, I've been renovating my house and spending time with my kids, here
and now
there.
you're helping me renovate mine.
Now I'm helping. Yeah.
God, today was rough.
Well, and I finally got the rough and drain for my freestanding tub.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I still need to get some plywood to fill the hole in my floor in my bathroom. But yeah, so it's like I can move forward now, but like your house needs to be worked on too, and I'm happy to help out with that too. But
so
I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, even though it hurts like crazy after I'm in so much pain.
Yeah. So after you've taken time to discover who you are, find yourself, kind of work out, find activities that are healthy.
Healthy activities. Not good or bad activities, because good or bad, it implies shame and guilt. No, we don't want to do that. We just want to find things that are healthy for us.
Healthy, positive, that helps your brain grow, helps you keep the weight off, helps you find healthier habits.
Right.
Avoid those.
Rediscover yourself. Rediscover who you are. And if you were in a marriage for like 20, 30 years, what were the things you enjoyed before you got married? Try them again. See if you like them.
When you were 12.
Yeah. Well, you got married at 12?
No, but it seems like, when was the last time?
Right.
Thing. Well, okay, so what, I think, did you set any goals? Like you talked about goals for stuff, but like future goals and okay, because I started like a dry erase board that has short-term goals and long-term goals.
Okay.
And that was one thing that one of my friends said. It's like, you have your long-term goals, but long-term goals take a long time, and so you don't see much success. So having those short-term goals there. So like say your goal was to get out of debt.
Right.
Okay, well, that's a huge goal when you look at it, but when you break it down, you're like, okay, cool. I have one credit card that's $1,000, one credit card that's $750.
Yeah, I wish.
Okay. I'm talking about myself.
Wait, you have credit cards that are only like $750 and $1,000?
I literally didn't have credit cards until Biden.
Yeah, I've got a few credit cards.
So yeah, I think I have like 4 now, but it's only because like I paid cash for everything because the being in debt with my ex-wife, was such a mental mind fuck because I was so poor growing up.
Yeah.
It was such a trigger for me, and I just hated it so much that, like, I would cry. Like, I'd be in the shower just crying because I hated being so poor because we were rich poor, and it sucked. It's like there's no reason for this shit, and so I didn't want to get there again. And so I got there again after the divorce because I had to buy all new furniture and all this stuff.
Right.
And
right.
Luckily I got out of that. And then, COVID helped with that with the nursing.
Yeah.
Pay,
so the way that I do it, I have long-term goals, but I do this process of reverse engineering. So one of my goals is to get out of debt, right? Like completely out of debt. I don't mind a house, mortgage, that kind of thing, because I don't have a couple $100,000 sitting around. Yeah. But I want my cars paid off, credit cards paid off, everything. I've got one credit card I want to close because it's just a high interest rate, and I was an idiot and didn't pay attention to. But so how am I going to get out of debt? Well,
start a podcast.
Well, yeah. If we can make money at this, that'd be great. But otherwise, I'm just enjoying it. But I have my house, so that's one thing that I asked for in the divorce, and my second wife didn't fight me on it, and so I have the house. But I also took on the vast majority of the debt. Yeah. And so I look at my house as a means to an end when it comes to, because I don't believe in like the forever home thing. I bought my house below the value of the neighborhood.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
You know what a forever home is?
What's that?
Coffin.
Yeah, there we go. Right. So I had equity from the start, but the house had never been updated. And so I'm now updating and changing the house around to build equity into it as it grows in value too. Yeah. The goal is when I sell the house that I get enough equity that I could pay off, if not all of it, most of my debt. Yeah. Because if I'm down to like $5,000 on a credit card, all right, I can pay that off over a few months. Yeah. Especially if I'm not paying on everything else, right? And so it's the short-term goals are like I'm renovating the bathroom in my house. I put in new flooring on the main floor. Those were short-term goals to me. Yeah. But they all lead towards the long-term goal. And so me losing weight, I've gone from 350 pounds. I'm about 246 right now. My goal is 220, but that's a short-term goal, but my long-term goal is for health, not losing weight, but health. And so, going to the gym, I got a gym membership, and I've been going 4 or 5 days a week for the last month and a half now. Nice. And I'm continuing to go because I want to get healthy. Yeah. That's the long-term goal. And so it's the reverse engineering of, if I want to be here in a year, 5 years, 10 years, what do I need to do now so that I can reach that? And that then defines my short-term goals. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how, not kind of, it was mine too. Like, for me, my goal was, get a house, get rooms for the kids. Hopefully they'll come over more often, stuff like that. But they're teenagers now, Kira's in college. So those goals have kind of shifted to, okay, let's just renovate the house to where we can Airbnb it or rent it out and then actually build a nicer home for us. Yeah, God, dude, these fuckers, man. So many shortcuts. So many. Oh, it's so bad. Every time something goes wrong, you're like, holy crap. Well, so this standalone tub that I bought, I am actually going to be insulating the tub. It's going to do nothing to the value of the home. Yeah. And I'll spend like $150 on it just insulating it, but it'll retain the heat. And so there's certain things where it's like, does it make sense to do it? No. But I want to make sure things are done right. Yeah, I mean, it's like I had the AC guy come today, and he's like, I can put a Band-Aid on it. Yeah. Till next year. And which is okay for now, but long term, right? And he's like quoted me $7,000 for the whole new system and everything because it's so old. That's not too bad. I got a guy for you. And I'm like, that's our short-term goal, is to save up to have that replaced by May of next year. Okay. That's so that gives us, 9 months or so. Yeah. Kind of thing. But, it's when you do that, because, that's how we, our vacation that we're going to go on, we basically paid $230 every month to have that vacation, and we'll go on that vacation and not have to spend another penny. Yeah. And we'll just enjoy the vacation kind of thing.
And so that's kind of cool. And that was one thing that I really did appreciate from one of my other relationships is she was so selfish with money that we had to make the goals to get things achieved. And that ultimately was like, as I got more mature, that's like, oh, hey, if you do this and set goals and do it together,
right?
It's so much more rewarding.
And I want somebody who actually wants to do that with me.
Yeah, it's
nice. Because I haven't found that.
It's nice.
I may have found that, but I haven't found that. We'll see.
So, in closing, I think the big thing, you set your realistic goals, embrace change. I think people are.
Well, that's one thing we haven't really talked about is recognizing that things are changing for you. Embrace it. Don't fight it.
Well, and people are so scared of change, and there's so many nurses I worked with that got divorced, and I'll just tell everybody right now that first year of divorce is the hardest because you lose your sense of who you are. You don't know what's going on. Everything's different. And you really haven't, you don't know your boundaries. You don't know, usually work gets more miserable.
Yeah.
In that time, and you're not as happy unless you have like a cool group environment, that actually kind of helps you get through it. But it's just, the loneliness can change your motivation for things. And you got to fight that. You got to fight that.
And that's something to watch out for. Loneliness should not be the motivation.
Yeah.
If you're feeling lonely, get out, get with friends, go on dates and stuff like that. But if you're trying to have a relationship because you're lonely, you're gonna
fail every time.
Well, like you had talked about just a little bit ago, where you started saying, well, maybe I'm too picky, maybe I'm too this, and you settled for something that actually became very harmful for you.
Well, and that came from meeting somebody that we clicked so well, and then being in a horrible situation for her because he was abusive and psychotic and cloned her phone and all this stuff.
Jeez.
Guys,
don't do that.
And I had to
don't do that, guys.
I take a step
Anybody,
back and
men and women, don't do that.
I take a step back and go, hey, if this fucker's going to come and endanger my kids, I can't date you, kind of
right.
thing. And it's just like, and it was rough because it's like I really liked her a lot.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had that glimpse of like, oh my gosh, this could be somebody, and that's when I took a step back and started allowing the red flags and started allowing this, and then I fell into that trap of finding someone that was even 10 times more abusive. But luckily that's gone in the past, and I've moved on, and I learned from it, and I did learn a lot from it. I think the biggest thing I learned from that relationship with Amanda was how
what not to do.
how I communicated with Brenna, and how she communicated with me, and how we failed each other, and how I learned how to communicate better. And what not to do.
And that's the thing is, are we looking back at the relationship and analyzing what we did to contribute? Because there is no 100%, 0% responsibility in a divorce.
Yeah.
But what did you do? What did you contribute to? Like, one of the things that I mentioned it before we started recording, but like with my first wife, she painted me as this horrible monster.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person where I'm going to reflect on, trying to understand, did I actually do anything that caused this? Because when I got this, written statement during the divorce of like all these horrible things I did, I was like, is that the marriage I was in?
You doubted yourself, right?
I did. Yeah. I did. And I spent like 2.5 years in therapy. Again, another plug for therapy. And I had a really cool therapist named Dan. But it took 2.5 years or so. And one of the challenges that he had for me was like to write down that I was a good father and that I was a good husband. And
journal? I thought you said you didn't journal.
It was on a 3x5 card. Doesn't technically qualify. But it took a while for me to actually to say out loud and believe that, no, I wasn't a perfect husband to my first wife.
I'm smart enough.
I'm strong enough. And
gosh darn it.
Gosh darn it. People like, yeah. No, but it was, I wasn't a perfect husband, but I was a damn good husband. Yeah. Flawed, made mistakes, all kinds of stuff, but a damn good husband. I was devoted. I'm not a perfect father, but I'm a damn good father. And so that's when I was able to actually say that out loud and recognize it as truth. And that's me acknowledging like the mistakes and stuff that I made. That is what changed things.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely know I'm not fucking perfect, but I also know that I'm not going to put up with bullshit.
Right.
You know, it's like
And that's what I found myself doing in the second marriage.
Yeah, with Brenna, I did because we had kids. You know, with Amanda, I did because I was trying to combine the family, and I didn't want to lose that. You know, I was trying too fucking hard, you know, kind of thing. With the last person, I'm like, I'm not. Fuck this, man. I go, your son is disobedient. He runs all over you. You basically buy your kids, and you have really no respect for anybody else. And I'm like, why do I want to be in a relationship like that?
Yeah,
I go, I'm going to be fucking miserable for the rest of my life. I don't give a shit that you have a lot of money. I'm like, that's not what
I don't care about money.
I already had that. It wasn't good. It's
I'm
like, I don't need it.
I'm okay.
So it's like, it was one of those things where I'm like, no, this is not what I want. And when you do find the person that sees you and respects you and loves you and supports you
for you,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, and the encouragement, and you know, I'm her tore the whole back wall out, and I could see the inner face. It's like, oh God, another project. And I'm like, no, this is one that we got to get done. I swear to God, kind of thing, you know. But I love her so much because she literally trusts me to know that I'm gonna follow through. Where the other people, even though they knew I would,
right,
they would still act like I wouldn't. And the thing is like, I never fucking disappointed people. Like, if I said I was going to do it, I always did it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And we go back, we talk about that and
yeah,
communication and stuff. But
no, but I mean, when it comes to like moving forward, you gotta embrace the fact that it's happening.
Yeah.
Right. You know, when it comes to divorce, nobody wins in divorce. Everybody loses, and the kids are the ones that lose the worst. But you're not going to do any favors to yourself or anybody else if you're trying to hang on, if you're angry, all that kind of stuff. And so just letting go of that, just embracing the fact that it's happening, and recognizing that you now have an opportunity to create a life for yourself and to become the person that you need to for your kids if there are kids involved, so that you can have a good relationship with them. You may not have a good relationship with your ex. You know, I did like, what, last episode I said I was envious that your divorce actually went pretty well.
Didn't feel like it, but yeah.
No, it doesn't feel like it, but yeah, mine was,
yours,
yeah. But, you know, I focused on becoming a better version of myself, you know, trying to get back in touch with who I was so that I could be the best version of myself for my kids and have a relationship with them. And that's what I encourage people to do in my practice as a therapist, is try and let go, you know, work on letting go of the resentment, the anger, the hurt towards your ex.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly have like zero. Like, it might sound like it sometimes when we're discussing things.
Sure.
Because we're just like trying to give content. But honestly, like, I hope Brenna finds somebody and then she has an amazing life. And she's a wonderful person. She's great at her job. You know, and it goes from that. Like, my kids are part of her, and they got really good qualities from her, and that's what I'm proud of, you know. But I'm so much more happier that I found who I found now.
Right.
She's everything that I've wished for and wanted, and
you know,
I could not ask for anything more. I'm so fucking happy.
That's good, man.
That's awesome.
That's good. You know, it's a really sad thing when, you know, those first couple nights after separating, you feel more peaceful. That's what happened the second time. Was like, it was first time I think it was the first or second night or morning that I woke up in the house by myself. It was like,
I think mine was like, I can finally decorate and do what I want.
Yeah,
because our house is so fucking plain and boring. And anytime, like, hey, do you want to, you know, decorate this room? No, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, I don't want to waste this money. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, creating that environment that brings you peace. I think that's why I always use blues.
Yes.
Blues and everything, because it brings calming. I love the ocean. I love the water.
I like natural wood, greens and blues and grays.
Yeah, that's why you're green, I'm blue.
Yeah. But be patient with yourself, man. And all those out there that are going through it or have been through it, be patient with the process. You're not going to be your best self overnight. It takes time.
A lot of time. And honestly, go with the gauge of a month for every year you're born, or even your relationship.
Yeah.
It just really, I don't think you can find yourself.
No, it takes time.
Like 6-7 months. I mean, I think you really have to, especially depending on what you're doing. I think if you follow those guidelines where you embrace it, understand it, take the steps to recognize what you did wrong, because you did something wrong, they did something wrong. But if you're saying it's all them, then you're definitely part of the problem, and you're not going to learn from it, and you're going to just fall into the next trap of divorce. And,
Yep.
And if you don't break the cycle,
or you're going to settle into the misery that you're just afraid of getting divorced again, and so you're just going to be miserable instead because you don't want to be divorced again. I think I feel sorry for people that.
And I'll admit,
not sorry for, but I'm sorry that you feel like you have to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll admit, it took therapy for me to break my cycle.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
It really
did for
helped
me
help me understand. Even doing this podcast has helped me see things that, oh shit, yeah, actually I did do that really well. Oh man, I really got to work on that, kind of thing. And I think that's the beauty of this is, we're hashing it out a little bit, and we're,
it's therapy for us,
trying to help other people go through, because. I did have success after my first because I followed a lot of these steps.
Yeah.
After Amanda, I didn't, and I was miserable, and I was drunk, and
yeah, you weren't in a very good place.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is I never contemplated suicide or anything like that. It just
some people do.
Yeah, and it's like if you're getting there, get therapy. So
if that's where you are, definitely get therapy. Definitely reach out to somebody,
because it can always be better. Always.
Well, it will be. Yeah. Oftentimes we get so caught up in the moment, in the hurt and the pain in the moment, that we become kind of obsessed. But if you're feeling that, go to sleep, wake up the next day,
take a deep breath,
Shower. It's going to be okay.
Wash your feet. Anyway, borrow James' lotion.
I wasn't in the Navy. I've been saying this whole time.
Hey guys, I know this is for our entertainment. We just hope we bring some knowledge to you guys. We obviously share our personal stories.
Hopefully you relate, or at least this becomes educational in some ways, or helps you move forward in your own life.
Yeah, and hit that like and subscribe, follow button, hit that little bell so you get notifications.
Definitely, message. Give us tell us what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah.
If there's something that you want us to talk about, please.
Yeah, we would love more comments. I mean, I would love for somebody to say, "Oh my gosh, you guys are chauvinistic" or something. Something.
Yeah, even that would be great too. Not great, but
we've only had one negative comment, and it was one of James's dad's jokes. It was, "This guy wasted so much time coming up with this." I'm like, no, he didn't. He literally probably spent 2 minutes on it.
I will be very honest and say I have not come up with any of my dad jokes on my own. They're all from the internet.
I know you've used 2 of mine so far.
You've used mine before?
I did.
Yeah.
Fine. I win still. My delivery was better. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Absolutely. And how do we end?
We turn it off?
No, you say stay classy, Kansas City.
No, but I was going to do it nice. Stay classy, Kansas City.
Stay classy, Kansas City.
Thanks for shopping.